Hey everybody, welcome back to 2 Hours on a Sunday. I'm Nick.
And I'm Brian. And today we have Ian joining us again.
Hi, guys.
For
Hi,
a
Ian.
very special podcast.
Yeah.
Something that bonds us all together from our childhoods. And that is Pokemon. And not just Pokemon, the first movie.
Well, legendary movie here.
Legendary.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you guys, but I remember going to the movie theater in 99 to see this.
Did you really?
I did.
I don't think I saw it in theaters. I think I might have just saw it with you, like at home with you.
Yeah, on VHS.
But yeah.
VHS.
I saw it for like a birthday party. Like when Cineplex had those birthday parties, you could like go to the room and then like everybody would go. There was kids all over the place. Back when Silver City and Windsor was cool.
Insane. Yeah.
But this is a very different experience for us because for those of you who don't know, there was two different versions of this movie. In America and Canada, there's a censored version that was released to theaters and home video, which is the version we all saw growing up. But there is a version in Japan, but that was also dubbed. That's 12 minutes longer. And this 12 minutes was deemed kind of too intense and scary for the G rating that the movie needed to be released in theaters in Canada and the United States. So they had to remove 12 minutes of Mewtwo's origin.
I would have thought they cut it because they just thought that kids couldn't handle that length of time. They were getting bored. I didn't realize it was about
That's a good point.
The aggression.
Yeah, they thought it was almost too violent in a way and too like a serious tone because it is very dark. The 12 minutes is a very dark.
It is, yeah.
And it almost paints Mewtwo in a very different light. Because the movie we got, he very much seems like...
They totally changed his origin for me, yeah.
It very much makes him a villain with only a purpose of going against the humans. But in the Japanese release with the extra 12 minutes, you get his side of being betrayed. So he's very much an understood person with a kind of negative outlook.
Much more sympathetic.
Yes.
Yeah. A sympathetic antagonist, if you will.
Yes, like... By just adding a couple lines, really, like even all the rest of it, all they had to do is keep the part where he was interacting with the daughter, and that totally changes his entire character.
Yeah, and to jump in, I want to let's dive into the Mewtwo's origin. So the scientist that everybody knows from the first movie who creates clones, the cut version, he wants to bring his daughter back to life. His daughter's name is Amber. And she passed away, but he has her soul still living
inside this like little
capsule
container. Yeah. Which right away changes everything about this whole story.
Yes.
Like,
and because Giovanni, for those of you who've known Pokemon, the leader of Team Rocket, the big bad, he wants this scientist to create powerful Pokemon clones, but the scientist is using this to help study to bring his daughter back to life. Because if he can nail Pokemon clones, then he can bring his daughter back.
Yep.
And what's crazy is they're creating Mewtwo from Mew. So they have the same opening of the movie where they go into the forest and they find DNA of Mew, which is in the movie. But then they have this whole segment of having this baby Mewtwo being born. But the three starters are also there, who Mewtwo has later.
Yeah, which then that's a reason why he brought them with him or redid them.
Yes, he remade them because of the intro. So this whole intro, they were his friends. Mewtwo has this, obviously, a psychic connection to Amber. So he's dreaming in his pod as he's being created with the other starters. And he's having these visions of this whole new world. He doesn't understand who he is, which is really the whole purpose of this movie. He wants to know who he is, what is his purpose.
Why does he exist? Who made him?
And Amber's talking to him, and they're flying around the world in this dream state, and he doesn't know why he's created, who he is. And there's a line of dialogue that Amber states, in that she talks about how Pokemon tears have the power to bring life, which
is kind of essential
to the whole ending of the movie.
Yeah, it changes everything about this 10 minutes, changed so many aspects of the whole movie.
Exactly.
Coming at it from, like, you see the regular cut, and you're like, okay, that could happen in Pokemon. Power of love.
Yeah.
Pikachu can do anything, right? But this 12 minutes adds so much depth to the movie. The note of the tears having the magic, Pokemon tears having magic, it adds to the end of it's like it's Easter egg. It calls back to the
It
beginning of
makes
the
it
movie.
so much more well written.
Yes.
Exactly.
It's setting up stuff and then paying it off later.
And it also gets into them wiping Mewtwo's memory.
Yeah, so
Yes.
he doesn't remember anything.
Which, when we come to the original cut, he wakes up, he's like, where am I? But because Amber passed away, all the clones passed away because there was something happening. There was something going wrong. And then Mewtwo started getting angry. So they had to shut him down and wipe his memory so he couldn't.
Like, remember the traumatic events.
Yeah.
Which is
It
also
wouldn't
horrible.
stress him out.
So Mewtwo, I'm Team Mewtwo with this guy.
Yeah,
Exactly.
seriously, he may have gone about his plan a little bit aggressively, but
You
feel
understand
for the
more
guy.
now, like, why he is the way he is.
Yeah.
I thought they did such a good job with that. He's definitely more of a sympathetic character now. Really, really like that.
And it makes so much more sense for the end of the movie because of his relationship with Amber. Like, the way I see the ending when he goes off with the clones to discover, like, Amber is Ash. Like, he sees Ash as Amber, like, with all the love.
He starts to see that,
Like, what is in Ash's heart is why Mewtwo's whole path of revenge changed because of how Ash and how Pokemon see Ash. So it's like, that's his whole relationship with Amber at the beginning of the movie.
Yep.
It's such a better version of the movie.
12 minutes
shouldn't they? They
elevated.
should have just cut the aggressive, like the parts that were too scary, and kept the dialogue scenes. That was what added more to it.
Exactly.
If that was what they really needed to do, cut out the part where he gets that angry, but like keep all the talking with the scientists.
I
and
just
with,
think having the
Amber.
daughter dying is another thing that they didn't want.
I guess.
Okay, that's not
But
really
then
G-rated.
they kill off their main character in the middle of the final act.
Yeah.
So,
That is true. But he came back.
Yeah.
So after we get the origin of Mewtwo, we're back in the lab, and Mewtwo has grown to a full adult version of himself. And the scientists are back, and Giovanni is now still running the science lab, and he wants to know his purpose. And he's like, "Oh, we've created the most powerful Pokemon." And he's like, "So I'm not a real Pokemon. Like, Mew is. Am I better than Mew?" His whole thing is he better than Mew, and is he has a purpose greater than just being
A science experiment.
just science
existing.
experiment?
Yeah.
And so at a certain point, he's looking around, and all the scientists are like cheering and laughing, and they're like, "Oh, congratulations, we created Mewtwo." But he's not having it. He blows up the entire lab, and he's standing. The coolest shot is when he's standing in the fire
Yeah.
outside of his destruction. And Giovanni comes in, and he proposes to him that they could be partners and they can take over the world together.
that was this part. I don't know if it was any different than the original, but I thought that was really good. But it was different in the remake.
It was different in the remake.
I think it's much worse in the remake. They changed just a couple lines that really it didn't hit nearly as well.
I agree,
No.
because that was my first note. I said Giovanni's his purpose, his motives are totally different because they changed the dialogue.
Yeah.
So
And why? I don't know why they cut it, but
what did they? I didn't watch the new one. What were Giovanni's like motives here?
so the one thing that they did is they kind of eliminated the part about Giovanni funding him. It wasn't. They don't mention that, like, I created you for me. That wasn't in the initial proposal. That was when he's like when Mewtwo ends up breaking out. He doesn't say, like, you're mine, I'm your master, I built you for me, like, sort of thing, which I thought changed the relationship.
He also doesn't propose partners.
That was the other big thing. Yeah. He doesn't say we can take over the world together. He just says, I will help you control your power.
Oh,
Which takes away the whole Giovanni betraying Mewtwo.
right.
Because they were partners. It's
Also, Giovanni's supposed to be just like blatantly evil.
Yeah.
Taking over the world is his thing. Like,
He proposes being partners to Mewtwo, and that he can teach him to control his powers and be the most powerful Pokemon, and they could take over the world together and bring light to the situation. But he's lying about everything because Giovanni's a villain. And
he had a
Team
good
Rocket.
line about the whole whirlwind thing where he was trying to tell him, like, yeah, sure, you're strong, but without me, you're just going to destroy everything. I need to teach you how to focus your powers.
Yes.
Which, like, he kind of just manipulates it in a way that it's like, okay, I can see how Mewtwo fell for that. But otherwise, in the remake, it's like he just destroyed this. He doesn't need help becoming strong. He already knows it. So I just didn't think they sold it as well.
And And because his hatred for humans started with the scientist and thinking the scientist only created him for nothing and just a game. So he already hates them there. But the whole purpose of Giovanni creating the partnership is so that he has another reason to hate humans, and that humans are basically the scum of the earth and that Pokemon deserve better.
Right.
Which gets into Giovanni bringing him back to headquarters. And let's talk about the armor.
So cool.
So good.
The armor is so cool. And to be fair, the remake, I don't like the armor at all.
When I watched it, because I did make a point to watch the armor part, I'm like, well, I can see what they were going with and why they changed it, and I did think the helmet was still a good helmet, but yeah, no, they ruined the rest of it.
It's overdone. They added so much to it.
There's no reason to have to change it. Just make it the way it was.
Simple is better.
Side note: why was that never a skin in Smash Brothers?
I know.
I literally thought that as I was watching. I'm like, was there never a skin where you got to play, like, of all the skin, all they did is change the color of his tail. Like, why was there never one where you get the armor on? That was such a missed opportunity.
Yeah. I don't even know if that's like a rights issue. But like Smash Brothers have gotten rights to every character under the sun. They couldn't get rights to a cool costume.
Right. If they have Mewtwo,
but I guess, it could be a WB exclusive if WB owns the rights to that version of Mewtwo.
Right. But yeah, it's the coolest version of Mewtwo.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so cool.
Because we get into then Giovanni using Mewtwo as his main Pokemon to fight gym leader battles. So we see a montage of Mewtwo learning his power, and he's like, so this is what I'm capable of. And all these trainers are going head to head, and we get a little cameo from our boy Gary.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which honestly is cool because it ties into the show, because there's an episode where Gary goes to fight Giovanni with those two Pokemon, and then he meets Ash outside, and then he couldn't beat him.
And it also, I thought that, like, I even remember back in the day when I was a kid watching it was cool because it kind of melded with the games a little bit. It gave the backstory for why before you start the game that gym is closed.
Yeah.
It's like, if you were to take Ash out of the whole thing, but watch the rest of the show, you find out about how Mewtwo escaped and how the gym got destroyed, and then why he's off hiding in this cave, which I thought was like a cool way to kind of incorporate the games to it.
Speaking of the games, Mewtwo, he's so overpowered in this movie, but let's talk about how overpowered he is in the game.
Yeah, you roll up to him level 70. Yeah. The highest you had to do up to this point was what, 50?
I think, all the legendary birds were level 50, and he's level 70. Fun fact, I caught him with a Pokeball.
So did I.
Yeah. Because you run through 87 different Pokeballs to try to catch him, and then you finally caught him. Because you don't know, back in the day, we're just kids. We don't know to keep the Master Ball around.
Keep the Master Ball for something. Yeah, I think I used the Master Ball on like Zapdos or something. Because I don't know if I used it on something like that. But
Zapdos for sure.
I really, really wanted Zapdos. And so I'm like, okay, I'm getting this. And then it's like, oh, crap. Well, I don't have a Master Ball.
Yeah. But Psychic type was
the most powerful. Aside from Dragon, really.
Yeah, Dragon didn't have no weakness in the old game besides Dragon. And if you didn't have a Dragonite...
Did they even have Dragon in the original game, or was that...
They had
Dragonite.
That was...
they had the typing of like Dragon Rage.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But Dragonite was the only one. So Dragon and then Mewtwo. But when you roll up to get Mewtwo and then you went to fight the Elite Four again, you could just wipe the whole Elite Four with just Mewtwo.
Just him, yeah.
You needed a couple of ethers to get that Psychic back up to 10.
Yep.
You just kept rolling through.
The last time I played, like when I was playing Let's Go, that's seriously after, Mewtwo, I think, did 99% of Elite Four on his own.
Yeah. He's one of the most iconic Pokemon. I could see why some people don't like him. Because he's so powerful. Well, in today's generation, like people just make him overpowered but we have a different kind of view coming from Pokemon, the first movie, and then the first games. He is the most legendary Pokemon of legendary Pokemon.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. With all of that combined, it just really kind of established his legacy as like the top.
I loved the lore behind him. Like you go to Cinnabar Island, you read the journals in the mansion. And there's no big build up. It's just you go to the cave, to Cerulean Cave after you beat the Elite Four, and he's there at the end of the tunnel. Yeah. Like that's
Yeah.
I don't know. I loved that kind of search for a legendary Pokemon rather than like the whole story revolving around it.
Yeah, it just makes it feel like a natural part of the lore. Like he does have this whole backstory, but you're just kind of a small piece of the bigger puzzle.
Right, right. And that's why also I think the like Red, the character in the games, is always characterized as this like silent badass character because he was literally just a kid going on an adventure and then he catches like every legendary Pokemon and beats the Elite Four, does all that, and he doesn't say a word compared to everybody else who's like been thrust into these crazy stories, right?
How terrifying was it going up to like you seeing Mewtwo in Cerulean Cave? Like just the sprite.
Because it's like,
like you finally get through Cerulean Cave and then you're like, oh my God, he's sitting right there. You save like 6 times in front of him because you don't know what's going to happen. And then the music kicks in.
I think I probably was a little lost in the caves and I had to get my sister to get me to him. And then so like she navigated through and stops and then she hands it back to me like, oh, okay. All right. There he is.
And your Pokemon were not leveled high enough.
Nobody was
no
ready
one
for
was
it.
even close.
No.
You had to also worry about catching him, but also worry about your whole team getting wiped.
Yep.
Yeah, which usually
and then he
would
had
happen.
recover, which is horrible.
Yeah, so just when you think you're getting somewhere.
Yeah. But yeah, so back to the movie. We
a little tangent,
tangent, but it was necessary. We have to open up after Mewtwo breaks free of Giovanni because at a point Giovanni says he betrays him and says, "No, you're not used for. We're not partners in this. I'm using you because I want to be the most powerful. What would you say?
Yeah,
tyrant of the world.
I'm going to rule the world." He used him to catch all of these Pokemon and took advantage of them, and now I don't need you anymore. Like you're going to do what I say, and that's that.
Because he even locked him up. He restrained him in his armor.
Yep.
And that's when Mewtwo just flips the switch. He says, no one can control me. I know my power. And he just breaks free of the armor and he just shoots off and ends back up on the island where the lab was. And that's where he builds his kind of
castle,
his own mansion.
Yeah. And that's kind of when Mewtwo takes a turn that says humans, are not worthy of Pokemon and Pokemon should not be the slaves of humans.
Well, thinking about his exposure to humans thus far, he's been a lab experiment and a pawn the whole time he's been conscious, essentially.
And lied to and manipulated by them all.
Absolutely.
In various ways. So yeah, obviously, like it makes sense that that's going to be his outlook on everything.
Mm-hmm. And it's so tragic that he, having that 12 minutes, his memory being wiped of his memories of Amber and his original, but you can tell the subconscious it's still there because he does recreate the clones.
Yeah. He has the feelings. Yeah. I actually never thought about that. Yeah, somehow he recreates them even with the same like markings on them. Yeah. But he doesn't explicitly remember why he's doing it.
Yeah. And for us, I think when we watched it originally, it's probably because 3 starters from the original games, that's
he
all
even
it
had
is.
a throwaway line about, I also started with the 3 starter Pokemon or something like that.
He does, yeah. When they introduce them, he's like, it's like, I as well started with Bulbasaur, Squirtle, and Charmander. Right. But he's like, these are their evolved forms. Which also in the remake, that dialogue changes as well. Because he doesn't say their evolved forms in the original, because everybody already knows Charizard, Blastoise, and Venusaur are their evolved forms of the starters. Yeah. But there's so much dialogue exposition in the remake for kids who have no idea what Pokemon is, and so they have to explain a lot of things. So they're like, oh yeah, they're the evolved forms of Charmander, so they have to add a bunch of stuff. And even for Ash's Charizard, they're like, oh, that's just Charizard, because people don't know how much of a D Charizard was back in the day.
Yeah, he just doesn't like to listen. But while we're on that, though, how sick was that when Charizard comes out and he just immediately like snorts the fire? Yeah, he's just so
as much of an irritant as he is, like to Ash. He thinks he's the most powerful being ever, and he's so cocky with it. He's snoring, like he blows the fire, and then he immediately sends a flamethrower towards Mewtwo, and then Mewtwo's like, your Charizard's poorly trained.
Yeah.
Which he also says differently in the remake.
No.
Yes, he doesn't say that line.
Killing me.
Yeah, all the lines are not as good.
And I don't know why they would change that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Because so many other parts, I remember noticing they have a lot of parts in the remake that are like really good shot for shot, like exactly redone.
Mm-hmm.
And so if they're going to be so faithful to some of the visuals, why change
Yeah.
the lines for no reason?
I have no idea. So we open up after the prologue of Mewtwo, and we're the narrator of Pokemon. Can we talk about how this legend has been doing it for like 30 years?
Yeah.
Yeah. Watching the movie again this time when he comes in, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. They do start it like it's an episode.
Yeah, it's so cool. And every time you watch Pokemon and this narrator comes on, you just feel so good and like at home, and like it's like you're back feeling like every Saturday morning you see something familiar and it's like your best friend.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
And it starts off with, Ash, Misty, and Brock hanging out on a cliffside and getting into their Ash's sitting on a table. And he's like, Misty and Ash's relationship is so funny because they're always button heads and Ash is always just giving her the gears. But she's like, Ash, do something. And he's like, oh, Misty, I'm too weak. I'm too weak to do anything.
Can't.
I'm so hungry. And Brock,
I haven't eaten since breakfast.
Yeah, it's probably been like an hour. I haven't even eaten.
Yeah.
And Brock's like, don't worry. I have the special recipe, the no chew stew.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which was.
And he's like, oh, and then this guy comes in, this other trainer, and he's like, hey, are you Ash from Palatown? Which they also changed in the remake, but whatever. And he's like, yeah, that's me. And he's like, how about a battle? And he's like, oh, for sure. Ash is always wanting a battle, which is
pops right up.
Immediately
jumps up and runs over.
Yeah. Ash, I thought you were too weak to fight. He's like, well, battling's, I'm never too tired to have a battle. And she's like, oh, whatever. And so it kicks off with the battle. And this battle is pretty much shot for shot with the original remake, aside from a couple different camera angles because they're in 3D. But I do want to say what this movie has, other than just different dialogue differences, Pokemon needs to be in 2D at all times.
Yeah.
There's something uncanny about it being in 3D that
having them 3D,
I just don't like. Even the people, the characters are like uncanny.
Yep.
But there's an edge to the hand-drawn aspect, and there's a velocity, and there's grit to it. And it's not even about just having the grain from being 99, but it's just this tone over it that makes it more visually interesting and less just perfect,
Yep. Now, there was one little Easter egg, I think. The emblem on that trainer's bandana. It was the logo for Team Aqua.
Oh, really?
Gen 3. Yeah.
Oh,
so it was
really?
like the skull and crossbones underneath it, but it was a red bandana. So they hadn't
I just thought it
solidified
was
that.
a generic pirate sort of thing.
Well, that's what I thought too. But then there's another one, and I'll get to it once we meet the other characters.
I think they might have just used that later because I don't think Gen 3 was even thought of at that point because only Gen 2 was created.
Gen 2 just came out.
Yeah, right. Until we talk about the next one that I saw.
Okay.
But we'll get to that once we
right.
meet the other characters.
All right. Pokemon genius.
I do remember when I watched the movie for the first time, I'm thinking, like, who is this guy when Dawn Fan comes out? Because Gen 2 had like just come out. I don't think played any of it yet. And so I was like, what? This is a brand new Pokemon. This is crazy.
Which I think, to go off that, is other than the censorship, they had the Pikachu's Vacation short at the beginning of the movie.
Yep.
And that introduced a lot of Johto characters. So they were doing that to help introduce the new audience to the new games that were coming and the new season of Pokemon, which I think is also a very good plug
that was
on their
exactly.
end.
Yeah.
Well, even like Ho-Oh being introduced in the first episode of the series.
So impressive when he wasn't even a thought then.
Yeah. And they tie that into the end of the movie.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right.
They tied
when
in.
He says that my very first day.
He's like, I saw some legendary Pokemon, but I wasn't sure if it was real. And that just happened to me right now because Misty and Brock didn't see it. So Ash has this special connection with legendary Pokemon, which happens in every single Pokemon movie. Like Latios and Latias, Celebi, he has Entei, Deoxys, all of them. Every single Pokemon movie regarding a legendary, Ash has this connection with them that goes on forever.
Yeah.
Yep.
But so he has this battle with this trainer, and there's a Fearow flying overhead that's spying on all these trainers, and it's Mewtwo's Fearow. He's trying to collect all these trainers in order to prove that he's the strongest Pokemon trainer in the world. And this is when we get reintroduced to Team Rocket, and they're chilling on another cliff watching this. And they're like, oh, they're always after Pikachu.
It's a good intro for them.
Yeah.
They're always after Pikachu. And they're talking about food. And Jesse's like, oh, I can cook. And Meowth's like, no, you can't. I don't want to lose you. You're like, I lost 8 of my 9 lives because of your cooking.
Yeah.
And so it's just Team Rocket has been around since the beginning. And their whole thing is trying to catch Pikachu for Giovanni. And at this point, Giovanni doesn't even care. But they're just like so hell-bent on catching Ash's Pokemon.
He's so far beyond that. He just had Mewtwo and...
Yeah. So Ash defeats this trainer pretty easily, by the way. At this point, Mewtwo sends a Dragonite to deliver a message to Ash. I love Dragonite in this movie.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
The wings are even bigger in this than the games, which I think they should make the wings bigger because of his tiny wings. He can fly, but I prefer them the way they looked in this movie.
Exactly. Because I find Dragonite is like it's a very like soft looking dragon, even though he's still so cool.
Yeah.
It was a good balance.
I think that was part of it, is that he looks like he's a big teddy bear, but then he's actually like, he can walk right over you.
Yeah.
And he shows up, and let's talk about Brock's obsession for females, because he shows up and he gives them a hologram, and he pops up and he's like, oh my God, she's so beautiful.
I think that's the only lines he has in the remake. All he says is just the comments about...
Yeah, he's pretty irritating in the remake. He doesn't have a lot of personality. And so she tells them about this challenge and about going to this island to face the ultimate trainer. And of course, as soon as Ash hears that, he's like, well, I got to go. If there's the greatest Pokemon trainer out there, he wants me, I definitely have to go challenge him. Because Ash's whole goal, for those of you who don't know, is to be the very best like no one ever was. And to be a Pokemon master. Which, congratulations, he finally became the very best like no one ever was 25 years later.
It took a short 25 years.
And he's still, I would say 11. I'm going to give him an extra year. He's 11 years old.
Yeah.
But he finally became the Pokemon champion. And the episode when he does, I watched it when it came out in Japan, and it hit you like a truck. Like when Pikachu goes down, I don't know if you guys watched it. I think I sent it to you both.
Yeah, I watched it.
Pikachu goes down and has this like vision, and all Ash's original 6 Pokemon show up to like wake Pikachu up, and then all of his other Pokemon are there, and then Ash walks in and he's like, see, Pikachu, we're all here supporting you. We can do this as a team. I was done the second that happened. And then what I think was cool in the American version, when he cuts back out of that, they play the Pokemon theme song when Pikachu goes full power. So they kick off with the original theme song, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
So cool.
Talk about making me cry twice.
Yeah.
Which, just to cut back to the movie for a second, I remember even this time watching, but originally, how cool it was that they like started with the theme song over that opening battle with the credits happening. That was the coolest credits I'd ever seen.
Yes.
It was just like, this is amazing. Like, seriously?
I wrote that in my notes. I was like, this theme song hits so hard. It's because it's not the original. They kind of remixed it a bit, but it was so fun and added such a nice dynamic.
But it had enough of the same stuff. Yeah.
It's a nice dynamic to the battle, because you're like, no one's paying attention to the credits because this battle's happening and it looks so good, but you're just like jamming at the same time. But yeah, they get this invitation, and then Ash agrees immediately. So he checks marks it, and then Team Rocket stops Dragonite with the frying pan. They're like, what's going on? What are you doing? And then they find the invitation. They're like, oh, where are you going? And so they end up following them to Ash and Misty Brock go to a port with the Pokemon Center in it, where they have to take off, or they're going to catch a ferry to go to the island. And I don't know about you guys, my Pokemon knowledge is pretty deep, but when they are running in the rain to the port, I could have sworn that was when Brock said, I'm going to use my trusty frying pan as a drying pan. I don't know if you guys know that meme.
No.
But it's not from that movie at all. I was like, they cut it out. Like, what's going on here? Because I watched it on Blu-ray first. I have the Blu-ray Steelbook. But I was like, they cut it out. And then I watched the uncut version. But it's a totally different episode when it's raining and Brock's like, oh, I know. I could use my trusty frying pan as a drying pan.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh.
No, I don't know that one at all.
Yeah, they get in there and all the Pokemon trainers are gathered in the storm. Mewtwo creates the storm as a challenge.
The hand
The
waving
hand.
thing.
He's just
So
sitting there.
cool.
I'm going to tell you this.
Yeah.
The remake, it's not as good.
Come on.
No, they changed the way it's shot and how he sets it up, and I think he only does a couple swirls.
And the composition is totally different. Rather than being from behind his chair and just only seeing his hand do the
Oh yeah, it's like a front shot of just his hand.
Yeah, it's just his elbow up and it's the front angle of him just doing this. I'm like, that's not intimidating at all because we haven't seen Mewtwo in a while. So having that behind shot of just his hand creating this chaos, it's so much better suited for the villainy that it's about to take place rather than the boring 3D shot they chose.
And they keep going back to it. They did like a couple shots and they're like, oh, it's getting worse and worse out there.
Yeah.
But the shot from behind makes it seem more sinister, and also it's like he's not even bothering to care. This is so easy for him to do.
Yeah.
I'll just whip up this storm that's going to change a million people's lives. But like, it's just not even worth the effort of sitting up in his chair.
Yeah.
Like,
so that's another thing that the remake gets wrong. Other than Dan Green voicing Mewtwo,
which he was a very good voice. Yeah.
Who, those of you who don't know who Dan Green is, he is the voice of Yugi and the Pharaoh in the show Yu-Gi-Oh! And he has the best booming voice of all time, and no one can fight me on it because the Pharaoh's voice is so iconic. But even in the remake, they don't do his voice acting justice at all with how because Mewtwo doesn't move, right? He doesn't move his mouth.
Yeah.
But they don't, like, you have the animation tools using the 3D. They don't accentuate his eyebrows or like his moves at all. Dan Green's giving the performance of his life with the terrible dialogue he's given. And they're just like, Mewtwo's just standing there as he's delivering these booming voice. I'm like, that doesn't work. You need more in his eyebrows or his more emotion.
Just because he's not talking doesn't mean you can't animate it like he is.
Yeah. And so Ash is in the port and we find out, I don't know, the Sea Harbor lady that comes in. Is she like
I don't even remember her at all before.
She's got an accent.
She's like some French lady who comes in and starts talking about all of a sudden it's a random storm and she jumps right to, this is the storm that happened a millennia ago that wiped out all the Pokemon. It's like, where did that come from?
She's like, it's too dangerous. And Ash and Pikachu, I love the shot of Ash like popping up in the crowd to come to the front. Because Pikachu's always...
Did that happen in the original? Because I didn't even remember. I didn't notice it as much in the remake, though, when he's like jumping really through them.
It did happen in the original.
It did?
It was different in the remake as well. I think he just appeared.
The remake, it was actually really obvious. He would like pop up and then like zip and then like pop his head up like a gopher and then like...
Yeah, because you only notice Pikachu in the original. Like you saw, because she's always on.
I think that's why I didn't really... Yeah, that's really cool, though.
So he comes up and she's like, oh, you can't go. And he's like, what do you mean? The greatest Pokemon trainer is waiting for us, kind of thing. And she's like, well, the Pokemon Center's closed. Officer Jenny. He's obsessed with Officer Jenny and Nurse Joy. This is Brock. And he notices on the wall that they have a poster of Nurse Joy missing. And he goes, she looks so familiar. He's like, I've seen this face before. Which is so funny because Officer Jenny and Nurse Joy look the same in every single city.
Which I think that was part of the Easter egg, is like they were setting it up for being Joy being missing, but also it's just like a joke to like, well, of course she looks familiar. You've seen her 100 times before. Like,
but Brock's just like, she's so beautiful. Like I've only seen her once. So at this point, all the trainers like, you know what? We're going anyway because this trainer's waiting for us. And that's when they all go. I don't know if you guys noticed this, but when they're taking off, there's a shot of the guy with his Pidgeot fly away, and then the guy, the trainer with his Gyarados, he lets his Gyarados go, and then she gets on her Dugong. But there's another trainer on a Fearow that never makes it.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
No, I did not.
I remember this
because I
now.
rewound it, and I was like, "Where's this Fearow trainer
dark.
at?" Because I looked at all the Pokemon when they arrived on the island. None of them have a Fearow.
No,
I was like, "He didn't even make it." They sacrificed one of the trainers.
Also, that Pidgeot.
They call him Pidgeotto.
Pidgeotto, yeah.
Yeah.
They fixed that in the remake.
There was a couple.
Oh, did they?
Did they?
Okay. That was the one.
Also,
that's not
because
right.
we'll get to it later, but yeah, there was another one that they clearly say the wrong name of somebody.
Yeah.
They say that's Alakazam, but it's Scyther.
It's clearly Scyther.
Yeah, I think that's some kind of dub. I don't know how they messed that up, but they fixed it in the remake. So I was like, okay, but I'm like, that is not Pidgeotto at all.
No.
So Ash and them go, but the woman who's in charge of the sea, she comes up and she's like, you can't stop trainers from wanting. They're like, that's the whole reason they're Pokemon
They'll do
trainers
what
for
they're gonna
adventures.
do.
You can't stop them.
Yeah.
So they go off, and then Ash and them, they're like, how are we going to get there? Because for some reason, Ash's Pokemon never evolve.
Right.
Yeah. You can't ride on Squirtle.
He's got that
can't ride on
Everstone
Squirtle.
attached to everybody.
Everybody. And then Team Rocket shows up. I don't know. It's a running gag where it's like Scooby-Doo. You pull the mask off them, and then Team Rocket's there. They never recognize Team Rocket, no matter what.
Even though they've seen him a million times.
And they show up as Vikings, and they're rowing in this boat, which is also different in the remake. They're in just other spherical boat. It's not as good.
It was a Lapras. It was like a Lapras tour boat.
Yeah, and they're singing. There's like a singing scene. It doesn't make any sense. And so they get there, and then the wave crashes in, and then all their disguises come off. And they're like, oh, Team Rocket, blah, blah, blah. And then they end up getting hit by another wave, and they're underwater. And I don't know about you guys, but Gen 1 has a certain iconic simplicity to it. And when Misty sends out Staryu, I love Staryu and Starmie to begin with, but Staryu's cry is one of the greatest.
Oh,
it's the most epic thing ever. And then Ash has his Squirtle. But I think the original does this so much better than the remake, because the remake, it makes it seem like they get through the storm in a matter of 2 seconds. They unleash their Pokemon, and they swim up, and they're already done. Whereas the original, really makes it seem like they're not going to make it there. Mm-hmm. Because as they're going up and under, like Ash, Misty, and Rook are going to drown. And Squirtle and Staryu have to like kick it into a new gear, and they notice that. And Squirtle his bubbles go and he goes off. So they get to the island, and they're the last ones there because they clearly don't have the Pokemon to achieve speed to across a sea.
And half the thing they were doing in this Viking boat.
Yeah, that's true. Which is funny because later Misty gets a Gyarados, and that would have been so much more effective now because all she has is a Psyduck. And so they get to the island, and the nurse brings them to the top, and they walk in, and these gates are massive, and they just go in. All the trainers are there, and this is when we see Mewtwo for the first time. Mm-hmm. He comes down through this beam of light, and she's like, cool. I want to introduce to you the greatest Pokemon trainer of all time. And everyone's like, what? And the music's like, and he's coming down, and all these trainers are like, you're just a Pokemon. How are you supposed to be the greatest of all time? And then you get this shot of Mewtwo behind Nurse Joy, and he speaks through her. Yeah. And then Brock's like, oh, he's psychic. But then in the remake, Brock's like, he has like telepathy or something. He says something else. It's like, kids know what psychic means.
Right.
Yeah. It's more so than telepathy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so Mewtwo starts going. He tosses her aside because he doesn't need her anymore, because to him, humans are nothing. He gives them a speech that why are Pokemon slaves to humans, and then Pikachu goes back at him and says, oh, you're friends with this trainer? That doesn't make any sense. And then this guy sends his Gyarados after him. And let me tell you, Hyper Beam is the coolest move in history. And he tells Gyarados to use Hyper Beam, and he blasts him with Hyper Beam. Mewtwo just stops it with his palm, and he just sends it right back to Gyarados. But after he uses Hyper Beam, Mewtwo goes child's play, like it's nothing.
Yeah,
and that line is also different in the remake. I was like, you're changing him again.
Yeah, they just changed all of his lines for no reason.
It's just taking away his superiority, like all his iconic lines and all of his stoic, simple-minded, one-word answers, because he doesn't care, are changed because they need more words in the new one. And so Rhyhorn goes off. He pushes Rhyhorn aside, and then at that point, he's like, I'm going to introduce to you. He brings the clones up because Team Rocket follows them to the island, and they end up finding the lab.
Yeah, so that's like an A and B plot, and so they're discovering the clones at the same time as he's like giving the exposition about it.
Yeah,
because Meowth gets captured. How scary is that machine?
The claws coming out.
Yeah, I remember being terrified of them.
Yeah. So he's like, I only escaped by a hair.
Yeah.
And so he grabs,
I think I found your hair.
Yeah. And then they finally see the Charizard, Venusaur, and Blastoise, and they get released. And they're like freaking out because they're like right there.
Thinking they're going to attack them. Yeah.
And let me tell you, the clones with the scar designs.
So
awesome.
So
where's that skin?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Seriously. Yeah.
Again, probably another WB thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
But Charizard, all of them look so much cooler than the original with just those markings. But then they come up, and Mewtwo's like, I too have started with Charmander, Squirtle and Bulbasaur. And then all the other two have Brute, which is the guy's Venusaur, and then the other trainer, she has a Blastoise called Shell Shocker, which I don't know if you guys did this, but as soon as I saw this movie, my Blastoise and Venusaur, that's what I nicknamed them in the next game.
Of course.
Yeah.
Because Shell Shocker is such a cool nickname
awesome.
for a Blastoise.
It is.
And this is when Ash sends out his Charizard, and he says, it may not have a nickname, but I do have Charizard. And he sends it out, which I also got my Charizard Funko. I got autographed by Veronica Taylor, and she wrote that quote on there.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that was pretty good.
That is so perfect.
And I was like, I couldn't leave Comic-Con without getting her to sign a Charizard. It's like, yeah, everyone's like, you got to sign a Pikachu. I'm like, that's overrated. Everyone signs a Pikachu.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So he sends it out, and Charizard, cocky as he is, because he doesn't listen to Ash from this whole first season of Pokemon. And as soon as he comes out, he blows fire because he thinks he's so cool. And then he blasts a flamethrower towards Mewtwo, and Mewtwo blocks it. And he's like, your Charizard's poorly trained. And it's like, okay. And then that's when the battle starts kicking off. But it just solidifies Mewtwo as a force that you can't touch him. Psychic is so overpowered in Gen 1.
Nothing they can do can get close.
It was kind of a cool contrast between, Charizard's more reckless power and Mewtwo's more refined control of his psychic abilities.
Very tightly controlled. Yeah.
Even though he's not really had anybody, like he didn't get that much help from Giovanni, so he probably was doing it all on his own. And now he's he's as powerful now as a Pokemon we can compare him to that we've seen throughout the series.
Yeah.
Yeah, that Charizard is impressive, and then when he just knocks him like nothing.
Yeah. Before we get more into the battle, I do want to bring up that Easter egg because it's driving me nuts.
Okay, go ahead.
So when we meet the other trainers and they're in the hall sitting at that table, the water type trainer is a backpack. The design of the backpack is like the same colors and swirls as Kyogre.
I missed that.
There must have been they must have been designing things for years, right? And they're like, throw
There's
it in
probably
there.
ones also that they get a concept and maybe it doesn't come together, then they bring it back later.
Exactly.
Like they do that with movies and stuff all the time. Like half the things from Star Wars in the current gen are ones that they had an idea of before and didn't really work out, and they bring it back.
Yeah, they couldn't flesh it out exactly the way they wanted before, so they bring it up now.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I'll have to take a look at that because I
is
missed
really
that.
Just find just Google it or something. You'll see it.
Ruby and Sapphire were 2003, weren't they?
Yeah.
2003, 2004. We were in grade 4.
Yeah.
So whenever that was. Time to be alive. I loved Ruby and Sapphire.
That was the best.
Yeah. And we get to the battle. Now, I'm going to say this. The remake doesn't even come close to the intensity of this battle.
Oh.
For some reason, it just feels slow and the shots take a lot longer. The remake is also 15, 20 minutes longer than the original because of all these excessive 3D shots they want to put in and excessive dialogue that they have to do. But the intensity of this battle in the original, when they go one-on-one with each trainer, the original, they only do one move and the Pokemon gets knocked out. In the remake, they do two. So they survive one move and then the Mewtwo sends the other move and then the Pokemon gets KO'd.
Yeah, in the original, it was so much better because they are putting theirs out and he just knocks him down immediately.
She sends out Venusaur and she says Razor Leaf and he says Vine Whip. And then the intensity that the vines come out and smack down all the leaves, pick up Venusaur and throw him because he says his clones are superior in every way. And this definitely solidifies the clones with one hit. And you can't touch them. They can beat your fully evolved Pokemon in one hit. And then Blastoise comes out, uses Hydro Pump, and then he doesn't even have to tell Blastoise to do anything. The sound effect that Blastoise bounces off the ground does Rapid Spin and just knocks Blastoise KOs. Done. But in the remake, they do two different moves. They're like the Rapid Spin and Hydro Pump happen second, and they do other moves, and Venusaur does Leaf Storm. They're trying to incorporate all the new moves. But the battles take a lot longer, and it's not as vicious and aggressive and it doesn't have the effect that the clones are that more powerful.
Part of it is he's ruthless. He's trained them to be they listen to everything immediately, and he just
And I don't know if you guys caught this, but when Ash says Missy's like, oh, you can't beat him, Ash. And then he looks at Charizard. He says, Charizard, we have to focus on speed and not power. The second Charizard takes off, he launches his flamethrower immediately.
Yeah.
He's going to fight the way he wants.
But then also, I think I noticed is that that's what Mewtwo's Charizard does.
Straight up speed.
Because Ash is a great trainer.
Yeah.
He knows what to do. Just Charizard's too stubborn to listen.
Yeah. And Ash's Charizard just gets... The battle is so cool because it takes to the skies. It's a little longer than the others because the other Charizard is just toying with him because he knows he's not well trained. But even though Ash tells him what to do, Charizard doesn't care.
He doesn't listen. I'm going to do his own thing.
And in the remake, Mewtwo tells him to use Seismic Toss, which I think kind of takes away from the Charizard acting on its own because it's so trained. Because in the original, he just gets him from behind and just smashes him into the ground.
Yep. And
Mewtwo doesn't have to say anything barely ever. And then at this point, the dialogue is also different in the remake, where Mewtwo at this point takes control. He wants to capture all their Pokemon to clone them, and it's not as aggressive in the remake. But he takes the balls, and then the Pokeball design of his Pokeballs are super cool.
They're so good, and they're so intimidating. Like I remember being like, "Wow, those are terrifying" when they're chasing after them.
And they capture everybody's Pokemon. But then what's great about Pikachu lasts a little bit longer, and Ash is running after Pikachu and he's yelling at the same time. Not as good in the remake. I'm just pointing out there again. The remake is inferior. This is the last time I'll probably say it's inferior. But then Pikachu goes, he uses like 3 or 4 Thunderbolts at the top of the staircase, and then he's just too exhausted to keep going because he's been running forever, and he falls off the top, and then Ash jumps off the ledge to try to save him. He lands in the water. They capture Pikachu in the ball because Pikachu doesn't go into a Pokeball. Because Ash thought ahead of time, it's like, oh, Mewtwo can't capture them if they're in their Pokeball. So he puts all his Pokemon back, and Mewtwo's like, yeah, okay. And then he captures...
I remember when that happened, when the first time I watched it, I'm like, oh, whoa. Yeah.
He captures all the Pokeballs in another Pokeball. And so Ash follows Pikachu into... They're all pods. They're like down like some cylinder slide at like a playground. They're all going into the cloning lab, and Ash follows it down. He's like, you're not going to get Pikachu, and he follows him down. And when Ash goes into the cloning machine and he's fighting off all the arms.
Yeah,
it's so terrifying.
Yeah,
it is. And then he like bites on them too.
Yeah,
he's so determined to get it out of there.
Yeah, because Pikachu is his everything, which contrasts so well to the first episode of Pokemon when Pikachu could care less about him until he saved Pikachu from all the Spearow. But I don't think we mentioned it yet, but Mew has been lurking around this whole time.
It's been kind of like, I thought that was a good way that they had Mew with Team Rocket, because Team Rocket was kind of on their own, doing their own thing, but they like got to like bridge those two stories so that then Mew naturally comes in, but it's a surprise for the characters. Like Mewtwo doesn't know he's there, but if you just have Mew show up out of nowhere, it kind of is like, well, where did you come from? But by having Mew off with Team Rocket, then the viewer knows what's going on and that it's not coming out of nowhere, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you guys caught this, but here's an Easter egg. Did you recognize the voice of the computer that's running the cloning machine?
I don't think so.
Was it a girl's voice?
Yes.
Was it Ash's mom?
It's Veronica Taylor.
Oh, okay.
Who also does Ash's mom.
That's what. Okay, yeah. Okay.
But it's more erotic. She also has a role at the beginning of the movie in the 12-minute cut. She's one of the scientists.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so she is the voice, which I think is really cool.
That makes sense, because in that deleted part, I remember hearing, I'm like, I know this voice. And I was thinking maybe it was Jennifer Hale. But I'm like, no, it's a little too high. But that makes sense that's where I recognize the voice.
So she has another cameo besides just being Ash, because Ash's mom is not in this movie.
Right.
After they get the Alakazam thing wrong and all the Pokemon come in, and when Ash comes down, he sees Team Rocket. He's like, I don't have time for your dumb model today.
I just
running by him. And they're like, oh, okay. And then he finally saves Pikachu, and then all of his Pokemon come back out. And he basically destroys the entire cloning lab because he basically rips apart the inside of this cloning machine, which causes all of the Pokemon to get released, all the clones to be born. And this is when Ash comes out in the smoke. He's like, you can't do that. I won't let you. He's like, control the world with all the clones. And he comes walking out and the music starts playing. And this is when Ash runs up and gives him the punch. It's not as good in the remake. That's the last time I'm saying it.
Yeah.
He runs up to Mewtwo. He's going to punch him, and then he freezes him, and he chucks Ash all the way across. And then this would immediately end Ash's life if he would
For
have
sure.
hit the backside of the castle. But Mew saves him, and this is when Mewtwo finally sees Mew for the first time. And then Mew's just playing around like he usually does. He's bouncing on his little bubble, is what you would call it.
Bubble.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bubble. Yeah.
And which is cool because in Pokemon Snap, you have to release him from the bubble to take a picture of him.
Yeah.
Right.
Little tidbit there for those of you who played the old Pokemon Snap. And so those two start going head to head, and Mewtwo hits him with a Shadow Ball. His Shadow Ball is so cool because that move also wasn't in Gen 1.
Right.
Oh.
Because it's a dark move.
It's a dark move. That was in Gen 2, which I don't think they had.
That's like his main move from Smash Bros, which is what I thought of when I was watching it this time.
So he hits Mew with the Shadow Ball, but then Mew sends it back, and he's like, oh, so you do have some fight in you. And that's when they start going at each other.
That reminded me of like in Star Wars Episode 2 when Dooku puts the lightning at him and Yoda like catches it and you think he's just going to catch it and then he throws it all back at him, which I guess would have been actually reference to this instead of backwards. But in my head, I was,
And so Ash is still on top, but then all the Pokemon are fighting, and Mew and Mewtwo could care less, and they're just causing destruction and going around, bouncing at each other, throwing moves. We get to a part in, like, Pikachu doesn't want to fight. So when it comes to all the other Pokemon are going head to head, getting exhausted, Pikachu just stands there and takes the other Pikachu's moves. Like, it's just smacking him. It's so sad because Ash is still trying to get down and he's witnessing what's happening. But Meowth and the other Meowth are just sitting there. Meowth pops out his claws.
And they both are like ready to fight.
Yeah. He says, what are we doing? It's like, just because we're different doesn't mean we have to go against each other.
We have to think about the things of us that are the same, not focus on what's different. Yeah.
It changes in the remake. That speech never even happens. It's a totally different dialogue, which takes away from the movie.
The point of the movie. That was like the kid version of, I'm just going to explicitly summarize the point we're trying to tell you because you got to lay it out. Like, you can't be subtle. And that was like the point. They were just going to straight up tell you the whole point of this movie is that you have to embrace your differences.
Yeah. Just because they're clones doesn't mean they don't deserve life. Right. They're not the originals, but they're not going to hate on the clones because they're not born from this world. The only negative I say this movie has is the only song in the movie that comes in when all the Pokemon are fighting, and the brother song.
Yep.
And they're talking, like, I understand the lyrics, but I think it takes away from the intensity and the emotion that all these Pokemon are like going to end up killing themselves over this difference, because their master doesn't see what he's doing.
I would have preferred like a little bit more of just an orchestral underscore that's like really sad.
Having the lyrics there kind of just undercuts it.
This is one thing that Pokemon Battle's never done, where they showed like actually hitting each other, and like Charizard was biting the other one and Gyarados was going at each other because they just used their moves. And Ash is looking at this at the same time, and he's like, I have to stop this. And he like jumps off the cliff and like hurts himself, but then he like gets back up, and then he gets in between Mewtwo and Mew, come back down and like have this, the everything goes dark, and they're like, the blue aura and the pink aura like go off, and they're going
to do their Harry Potter and Voldemort sort of. Yeah.
And Ash runs in between them. Boom. He gets hit with a blast. It's like he's done. Like, who would want to do that? And then even Mewtwo says, like, he's a fool. Like, why would you interfere? And then he ends up turning to stone. And it's probably the saddest cinematic moment in history. What'd you say?
I remember being pretty upset watching this the first time. Yeah.
And this is when the 12 minutes that were cut is so pivotal to this movie, because Mewtwo is starting to understand, and all the trainers are telling what's going on, and Pikachu runs up to Ash. And Pikachu's whole thing is he likes to electrocute Ash as like a joke, or like to wake him up when he's like sleeping or whatever, just as fun and games. But he starts nudging him, and he's not moving, and he starts electrocuting him over and over again. And then we get a shot of like all the people watching this, and then we realize it's not working, and Pikachu's running out of juice. Just
the exasperation in his voice, like you can hear how desperate he is and so exhausted. And really, really sad.
And then all the Pokemon start to realize what's happening. They start to cry, which cuts back to the beginning, because she said Pokemon tears have the ability to bring life to something.
Bring life,
And so all these tears start to flutter, and go into Ash, and Mewtwo's like, what's happening? Like, what's going on? And then we get the coup de grace when we cut to Pikachu, and it's not working, and you get that one final tear coming from Pikachu, and everything, the light goes, and then Ash wakes up, and Pikachu still doesn't think it worked, but then Ash moves and he looks up, and then Pikachu loses his mind, and like they embrace, and then this is when Mewtwo finally realizes his mistakes. So again, Ash saving the day again without saving the day. And Mewtwo wipes all their memories because he doesn't want this day to be remembered. He won't remember it. He'll keep his memories because this is a learning point for him. And Ash asks Mewtwo where he's going. He's taking all the clones. He says, I have to go somewhere so my heart can learn what yours does.
This movie's really cool because our main characters, Ash and everybody, don't really learn anything because their memories get wiped, but they're not the ones who needed the lessons, right? It was all Mewtwo. Mewtwo is the main character, and it's like it's a good spin on the story.
Yeah, because the characters are like the audience insert in this one. Like usually they're the ones you follow through the adventure. But in this case, they're just there because you need a reason to be there and watch Mewtwo have this experience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because when he's discovering what had happened and Ash comes back to life and he's flying above with Mew, his quote, he says he misunderstood life, and he says, what you do with the gift of life determines who you are. So he's been going around, he's been going about his life all wrong because of how he was born. And that's how they end the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So good.
So good.
It is that movie.
Oh, well, that's not actually how they ended. Then they cut back to Team Rocket.
Oh, that's true.
That's true.
Yeah.
They always got to end it on.
Mewtwo didn't know that they were there, so he didn't wipe their mind and he didn't teleport them.
True.
That's right.
So they were hidden the whole time. He didn't even know that they snuck on the island. So when he resets everybody, they are just sitting there chilling on the island and there's nothing there, and he never sent them back.
Yeah.
So what do you guys think? Obviously, Pokemon was a massive franchise as just a TV show and the games. What do you think this movie did to the name of Pokemon to bring it more to audiences rather than just the TV show? Like, do you think it, as in uplifting and sending it into a different kind of viewer?
I think definitely, yeah. It expanded it so much. Even just the like awareness of it. Like it was, the games and the shows were huge in like with kids of a certain age, but really, unless you were the Saturday morning cartoon sort of like age group, it definitely could have flown under the radar. But once the movie was coming out, it was everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. If the movie wasn't, if the franchise wasn't as big as it was, it wouldn't have been in theaters. And if it wasn't in theaters, it wouldn't have reached so many people either. And I think even the quality of the movie took it to the next level in terms of who could watch it. It's for young kids. Like when we were growing up, we got it because it was all of our favorite characters, and you know, it was a beautiful movie. And then it was for kids who were a little older, looking for a little bit of meaning in the movies. And then it was, I don't know, watching it again now, I'm like, I could show that to my future kids. Yeah, it actually has a good message in it.
It still holds up really well.
Yeah.
It's got a great message. You got to watch the extended version.
Well, exactly. But, yeah. Never watching the original from North America again.
It's just a good movie, which it kind of bridges, like, because it is a video game movie, but it's also a movie from the TV show. So it gets that benefit. But like a lot of times video games are known for having terrible movies, but this just like, not only did they come out with the first movie to get all the exposure, but then it turned out to be a great movie. Mm-hmm. So it just elevated everything even further.
And I think the success of this first movie allowed the second movie to go to theaters as well.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because it came out like the next year.
Yeah, Pokemon 2000.
Yeah.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Which is also a stellar
It's
movie.
An amazing movie. It's arguably, some people say it's better than the first one. Like, people like the second one better than the first one just because of the characters. The song, Lugia's song,
so good.
Is so iconic. But I think, do you think the success of this first movie allowed them to keep making Pokemon movies? Or do you just think because the show was so successful and the card game and the games, they just made, like Pokemon 1, 2, and 3, I feel, were made for theaters because of the first one, but I think they would have made movies regardless. But I think how successful and how well made the first one was, they were like, okay, let's make the next couple cinematic adventures. Whereas I feel after that, as like Pokemon Heroes, Pokemon Forever were spectacular films, but after that, I think they were just making movies straight to DVD because of the show.
Yeah, it's hard to say. The Pokemania was so big back in the day. Like, it was so massive. I don't even know what the decision process would have been. They're just like, we're swimming in money. We got to like do something with it. And they're like, like, movie. Let's make a good quality movie. Let's dump a bunch of money into it. And then, oh wait, this was a big success. Let's do it again and again and again. I think it was a natural progression of the success of it. If you've got an amazing video game franchise, TV show, and card game, where do you go from there? Probably movies. Well, action figures. You had those, right?
You had the mini toys. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. I think it was very much a natural progression for the success of just the franchise.
They definitely would have kept making movies, but I kind of agree that if this hadn't been the hit that it was, they probably would have just gone right to the direct to DVD thing, which is still incredibly lucrative. Like, how many Disney movies in like the late 90s were just had 1 million direct to video sequels? There is money in that. So they still would have probably made them, but I don't know if they would have put them all out in theaters, like you said, at least in North America, if they hadn't got such a strong response from the first movie.
I don't know the numbers, but have the games, or has the franchise since, I don't know, 4th gen been as successful as the first two?
All the money is insane.
Yeah, so it's like,
so every year they break records for selling the most Pokemon.
Yeah, I was
games.
gonna say, don't they? Every time they sell it, they have a game come out, it sells more than ever before.
So it's interesting to me that they've chosen to, they chose to not invest in the quality of the movies after, Pokemon Forever.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Which one's Celebi?
That's Pokemon Forever.
Yeah, Forever, yeah.
But Heroes was after that, and that one was also good. All the Pokemon movies are good.
Yeah. What about like I know I've never watched like
there's the Jirachi Wishmaker.
Well, that's right.
It's still good. It doesn't hold up as well. Then there's the Deoxys one I love. I love Destiny Deoxys. It has Rayquaza versus Deoxys in the 3 forms. And that's when we first get introduced. Well, Metagross is in the movie, so is Blaziken. There's a trainer that has Blaziken. But when Blaziken first came to the scene in the show, when Ash fought Harrison was his name?
Yes.
It was the first introduction to Gen 3.
Yep.
I was like, Blaziken is the coolest Pokemon I've ever seen in my life.
I forgot about those movies. Destiny, Deoxys, Jirachi. I was thinking 1, 2, 3 Heroes, Forever.
Yeah.
And then those other 2. So there were like 7.
And then you go into the Diamond and Pearl ones with Darkrai. You go into Arceus. You go into Lucario. Yeah, that one was huge.
Right. And I hope that in the future they can put them back in theaters and give kids that experience that we had. If like you did. You went to the theater, you watched the movie, you got like the promo card, and
see this?
Oh yeah.
Pokemon I Choose You. This was released in theaters.
Oh, wow, that's
this was
right.
2017, 2018, I believe.
Yes.
This you got a promo card. It was Ash's Pikachu. It had a hat on and stuff. It was super cool.
Yes.
When I met Veronica Taylor the second time, I forgot to bring the card. Because we were rushing to go to a wedding, and the Comic-Con was the next day, and I forgot to bring it to get her to autograph. I was like, no. But yeah, me and Adria saw this in theaters. This is the movie. This is the movie. This was good. This is the first time I liked the new voice actress, like what she did with the character and the overall story. This is basically a retelling of his first day, like getting Pikachu and that going forward and that whole thing. But this is the movie that Pikachu talks.
Oh,
which is shouldn't have happened. I'm just letting it out there because the whole theater was like, "Excuse me."
Yeah,
and there was a lot of people in the theater. I'm not gonna lie. It was like 3/4 full for a Pokemon movie. It's like Dragon Ball. Like the Dragon Ball movies coming out every so often, people flock to the theater for those. So I think there is a time and place for a new Pokemon movie.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
With Ash's adventure being done, I think there's room for a new generation movie starring the new cast to appear.
Yeah.
And maybe like at the end of the adventure, they go to meet Ash. Like he's the Red. He's on Mount Silver or something. How cool would that
He
be?
is.
To kind of bring him back into that
That
light.
would be really cool.
But I want to ask, do you think the games, the TV show, or the card game, like what do you think is the most popular?
I think that for the established audience, that it's probably the games, anybody who's played it before. But I think the card game probably is getting a lot of younger kids in. Like I know lots of like who never watched the show or the movie and are obsessed with the cards. Like,
yeah, I agree.
I think the cards,
Yep.
like because the cards are more accessible, I find, because you have to have a console and pay now $90 for a game in Canada
to be able to play. Yeah.
No, that is very true, because I think even for me, before getting the games, I remember getting packs of cards, and you'd bring them to school and we'd play with them and you'd trade them. Unfortunately,
Yeah. Do you remember our school banning?
Yes.
Cards?
Yeah.
I think all of them
they
did,
banned the Yu-Gi-Oh club and the Pokemon club like after school, like going to like I was like, why? You're just ruining the fun. But Nick, do you remember at the Dover Arena? We had back in the day, they had that section that now is a Source Sports before they closed the arena. They had a guy selling cards at the arena. And we can go up and get the original packs, the boosters, all the single cards. It was wild, but we were so young at the time. We're like, that was a gold mine this dude had.
Exactly. Yeah, I think the cards are probably the most accessible thing for anybody to get into the franchise. And then from there, you're just hooked and you're like, oh, watch the back catalog of 30,000 episodes.
Because they do have them all on Netflix, all the episodes.
All of them?
Yep.
Wow.
Even up to, they just released the finale with Ash winning. They have everything.
That's cool.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I think the one unfortunate thing about how Nintendo operates right now is the inaccessibility to their legacy content.
Yeah.
From like, you can't play.
Well, you can if you want to buy it 4 times over.
Yeah, exactly. But you can't play red, blue, and yellow unless you have a 3DS, I think.
Yep,
you can't
because
play,
the games don't work anymore.
Right.
No.
You can't play Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald unless you do the remakes on the 3DS, or you have the original. They are awesome. They are very good.
Well, you can play the remakes of Gold and Silver, Soul Silver and Heart Gold,
on
which are
DS.
Amazing
Those
games
are the
as
best.
well. But
The best.
you have to have those devices in order to play them.
Yeah.
Which I think, and then even the eShop shut down, so you can't play the old games anymore, which I don't understand. I think they're doing it slowly, but I don't know why they haven't released the name, because on the Switch you have the N64, the Game Boy stuff. You can like pay the subscription to like play all these old games, but they only have Pokemon Snap and Stadium. But why don't you have the old games? You know how much money you would make?
They probably are waiting to do some sort of separate bundle.
I think so.
The only thing I can think of is they haven't done it because they think there's more money to be made. There's something where they're going to be like, oh, well, if you're a Switch Super Plus subscriber, then you get access to the Pokemon back library.
Yeah.
There's no reason for them not to put it out unless it's some sort of business decision.
Yeah.
Because they keep remaking them, but there's something about playing the old games as well. That's like, Let's Go Pikachu is probably my favorite game in the last 5 years.
Yeah, it was amazing. But re-release, like putting out the availability of playing Red, the original, doesn't take away from Let's Go.
No,
like,
because we're going to play both.
Would still buy it, even if it had the other one.
Yeah.
So before we head out, I just want to ask, what does Pokemon mean to you guys? Because Ian, I know you started a big fan, but then you kind of lost track, and now you're kind of played a couple games here and there. But from childhood to now, what has Pokemon done to your life as a kid, to an adult, and what does it mean?
I would say that it's probably just nostalgia, that feeling of home. It was such a huge part of my childhood, like my relationship with you, with some of my other friends. Like it was that thing that bound you together, that you all experienced and shared together. And then you grow up and I didn't like go off and do other things and you're too busy and you lose interest in whatever. And then rediscovering that as an adult, it gives you those same sort of feeling, which is like, it's pure nostalgia, but it's something that I can choose to make me feel the way I used to, and then share it with other people now. Like it just, yeah. And so I'm not so much into all the newer gens. Like I just like going back to the original ones that I did as a kid. Like really Gen 2 is about the cutoff for me. I've played a couple of the other ones. I played Black and White. I played X, but yeah, it's really just like I am their target audience for. I'll watch a remake of the first movie. I'll buy a remake of Red and Blue, sure, because it just feels that comfortable, awesome feeling of just like coming home to hang out with friends that you haven't seen in a while, like digital. And also it lets you reconnect about those experiences with the people that you had them with.
And that's what I think when they re-released Let's Go. That's how I got you back in. I was like, Ian,
because
Red and Blue.
There was nothing that ever. I'm like, yeah, it's cool. I still think that they all look cool, and I like to watch the sprites and like the animation and stuff. But like, no, once it was, I can play the original again. Okay, all right, you got me.
I feel pretty much the same way. I definitely held on to it a lot longer. Like, yeah, I played the heck out of like X and Y. What was after that?
Sun and Moon.
Sun and Moon. I played that. That was like the last ones for me.
Not as good.
No. And then I never got Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. And then I don't have a Switch yet. But even for me, I think the quality of the games is possibly different. It might just be the fact that I've
quantity over quality.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I've outgrown like what I'm seeing visually. I'm like, that doesn't look as appealing. So I don't even know like the last 2 gens of Pokemon, but
they're bad.
Yeah.
Like not the Pokemon designs, some of them are good. I'm not saying the designs are bad. Yeah. The games are bad.
Right.
Like people can come on and say, "Oh, you're just," because no, some of the Arceus was probably like people said that was a good game, but Sword and Shield and then Scarlet and Violet, the game's broken. Like you can't tell me that the game looks good. The game can't even run.
And I'd rather have the consistency of the old games. And I still have all the old consoles. So like if it's a rainy Saturday morning or whatever, or it's snowing outside, I'm going to pull out the Game Boy Advance. I'm going to play those games for half an hour and I'm going to enjoy the heck out of it. And then I'll put it away and I'll get it again every so often. But yeah, like Ian said, like I think still kind of having it in the back of my head to me is super important because it can come up in conversation and it's not like, oh, I feel left out of this. It's like, no, like this was our thing. This is what we got to do as kids. And even introducing it to new generations, I think is, I don't know, it's very heartwarming and being like, yeah, I played this back in the day, and here's my copy.
Yeah. It doesn't work anymore.
Exactly. Yeah, like the battery's dead.
You get all your old cards, and it's like that's all you had.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Everybody's like, I got the VMAX Charizard. I'm like, well, okay.
Yeah. Oh well, I had the original Mewtwo, and that was my.
My nephew was trying to trade me some of his new stuff for my old stuff. I was like, no.
Not a chance. As beautiful as the new artwork is, it's like there's something special about the simplicity of those old cards in the artwork.
Which is why they released the Pokemon 151.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know this, Ian, but they released a whole booster set based on the original 151 Pokemon. All new artwork, some old artwork mixed together, all new rarities, VMAXs, but it's just the first 151.
Pretty recent, like it's like still last year around.
Yep, you can find them. The booster boxes, the massive one. There's a smaller one. There's like 3 different ones. One has Snorlax on it, but the massive one, you get like a playmat, dice, and all this stuff. But it has Mew on it. But it's the original 151. And everybody who's been trying to get to collect the first 151, like the old games. But it's all out there. It just came out a couple 6 months ago, I think. But it's like the newest set that everybody's opening. Huh. And the card art is always the quality of the cards are always there.
Introducing people to Pokemon via the cards is probably your best bet, especially young kids.
It's like an encyclopedia. You can learn all the names of the Pokemon and see their faces at the same time.
Exactly.
And it's like a natural instinct to just want to collect things. So even people who don't know anything about what these cards are, what the characters are, any of that kind of stuff, you open it up. Oh, what did I get? What did I get? Oh, I got a rare one. Like it doesn't matter what it is. Yeah. People do it with the hockey cards at Tim Hortons or all sorts of stuff. But then if you get involved in the collecting it, then you start to actually appreciate and care about the IP and the characters and all that kind of more. And then you're like, oh, well, this is pretty cool. Maybe I'll check out that game or maybe I'll watch the show. It's a good way to get people who are completely uninterested in any way to kind of like get that. Hey, why don't you open this up, see what you get?
Yeah.
It's like a physical Pokedex.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
And for me, what I think is so smart, and not only is it like a single player game, but it's also back in the day with the link cables, and you could battle the other trainers and trade with other people. So it's the connectivity with friends, but not one player would have, I mean, for Gen 1, mostly had the same team, but anybody can have a different team. You're like, oh, who do you got on your team? It's like, it's a whole, there's so many options now to have different sets of teams.
Yep.
But I'm pretty sure everybody in Gen 1 had either, they're the same 6 Pokemon.
Yeah. You had all the legendaries and your starter. That was what you had.
But I think what's so smart is they release 2 games at a time. Pokemon Red and Blue, Silver and Gold, Ruby and Sapphire. Because
say the same thing,
whoever you're, me and you, Nick, whoever was going to
opposite.
get those games, you got the opposite because you wanted to be able to trade the Pokemon in those games to other players so that you can kind of.
And you had to interact to be able to finish it. There was no way to do it just by yourself. You needed to find someone who had the other copy and trade.
And then just the excitement of like going toe to toe with each other to who get to what gym first, like if on the game day release, you know?
Yep. The other cool thing about the games to me is there's no, well, except for Black and White 1 or 2, there's no difficulty settings because it's all, you could technically self-impose restrictions like people do with Nuzlocke. They do like monotype runs, you do single Pokemon runs, you do no evolve runs. You can make it as easy or as hard as you want. If you want a stacked team, cool, you're still going to have fun. If you make it like all Caterpie, whatever, like good luck, but you can somehow do it. And that's what I think is so cool about these games. You can essentially complete it in any way that you want, and it can be miles and miles different from another person's experience.
Even just the way that you choose to play, like if you're not intending to, like I remember as a kid, I didn't care about type matching or specials or all that stuff. I picked one guy his strongest move and I used it on everybody. Not saying that might not be how I play still, but, and so that's a whole different experience to, like you said, to self-imposed like difficulty level. Like if you can get as far into this if you want to work on type matching and have a different, like swap out a different Pokemon every time someone in the gym changes, or if you just want to just plow over everything, it's entirely up to your own play style. And the same game can give very different experiences depending on who's doing it.
You're going to end up, the champion at the end of the game, but how you got there is entirely your own.
And to end this podcast, I want to know, who's your favorite Gen 1 Pokemon?
Brian.
Because I can't ask Ian his favorite Pokemon because it's
not
Gen
a Gen
2.
1.
But you can say Gen 2 and Gen 1.
Okay. Well, for me, so Gen 2 would be Heracross. Nice. I always thought he was just the best. I don't know what it was, probably because he was in the show. But yeah, I thought he was so cool. Gen 1, this is not sitting here because of the podcast. I just unpacked stuff the other day. It would be Charizard would be my favorite. He just looks so cool. Even though I didn't always choose him as my starter, just because I was trying to differentiate from my sister, but he's so cool.
Gen 2 for sure is Totodile. And I think it's because of the show. Just like you always laugh every time he just starts squeaking or talking, and he jumps around and he's like flailing his feet. For Gen 1, it's either gonna be Venusaur.
Really?
Yeah, I know. Because at first, I think my first choice I ever picked was Charmander. I got Charizard, and I really loved playing it, but I played it a few times, and I kept picking Charizard, and I'm like, I'm gonna pick something else, and I picked Bulbasaur, and I was like, this is fun.
Bulbasaur's easy mode, by the way.
It is, and I think that's why. Because I was like, I can actually get through Brock
mode without realizing it.
But I don't know. I love his design, and the messiness of the sprite. Like the big leaf on his back was just like really cool to me. I don't know.
I love sprites.
They're
they're so great. Yeah.
But then it wouldn't be 3D anymore. And they were. What? I know it's not so wet. The original sprites, first 3 gens are just top tier.
They brought a lot of character to the designs, and even up until Black and White too. Like some of the designs or some of the sprite work was top notch, and they moved a little bit and they had a lot of color to them. It was, I don't know. I think, like you said, Pokemon movies should be 2D animated. I think Pokemon games should be sprite based.
Yeah.
But my favorite Gen 1 is Nidoking.
Oh, nice.
Oh.
Nice. Yeah. That's right.
Good choice.
You and I did the Nidoking mono run
We did.
to see how fast we could do it. I remember that.
I beat Pokemon Yellow. What was it, like 5 hours
I think so.
with Nidoking?
Wow.
Yep.
I
That's
messed up
crazy.
once. I let someone beat me, and I
Yep.
ruined my run. But yeah, and I love Nidoking so much. His design, his shiny is cool too.
Yep.
My second, it's tough because Charizard is so up there, but I think Gengar has to be.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's a good choice. Yeah.
Gen 1 has so many cool Pokemon. And over the years, I've grown appreciation for more. Like Machamp. I could care less about Machamp growing up, but there was an episode of Pokemon they did. I think we and you, Nick, watched it. It was it was not adjacent to Ashes. It was the stuff they put on YouTube.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
I can't remember what it was called, but it was one of the gym leaders. She was training with her Machoke and Machamp. And
Maylene.
Yes,
Yes.
Machamp looks so cool, and I was like,
Yeah.
"Hey, Machamp's so cool." Same with Dodrio. Like,
Oh, yeah.
I was always a Pidgeot, and I was like, Dodrio's so cool now. But there's just so many. Gen 2, I think it has to be Tyranitar.
Solid.
Just for what Tyranitar did in the original game, you couldn't get Tyranitar till late in the game, and it was a Larvitar at level 20, and then it evolves to 55. So you had to really put in the effort. But once you got Tyranitar, it's game over.
Shout out to Typhlosion with his flames.
Yes.
Yes.
Back in the day when he had fire. Heracross is also sick too. I'm not gonna lie.
Yes.
Ian
Yeah.
has a great choice.
He was always
Yep.
Steelix,
so good.
There's too many good ones.
Yeah.
Yep. If only Steelix was good.
Yeah. He has too many weaknesses.
Looks cool.
He looks cool.
but, yeah.
His Mega's sweet.
Yes.
Yeah.
Also, bring back Megas.
Yeah. That was the best
Yeah.
time. All this new stuff they're just trying to gimmick into new games. Megas was the best thing they ever did.
Yep.
Because it also brought back the original Pokemon when
Yeah.
they did do the Mega stuff. But I think we were pretty much wrapped up everything to do with Pokemon today. So I
Absolutely.
want to
Yeah.
thank everybody for listening. Ian, I want to thank you for hopping on in this Pokemon podcast.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me here.
Bringing nostalgia
A little blast from the
back.
past. Yeah.
Blast from the past. So this has been 2 Hours on a Sunday. I'm Brian,
And I'm Nick.
and we'll catch you guys later.